Yeah, because it does always like still waiting to start. Oh yeah. Welcome. We'll be starting shortly.
Yeah. Perfect. There it is. Look at that. Look at that, sir. Perfect. Give it like a minute or so.
All the time. Yeah.
And it'll be good. Okay.
Oh, there's a thing about lyrical takeover. I'm gonna edit this. How do I edit this?
We will be starting in a couple minutes. After you check out the silent option, there is a silent option on your light. About this week and next week. So in a couple minutes, we have all one.
I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry.
We'll set something up for December, and I learned my lesson. Let's make sure we have at least 4 players before I send it.
Okay.
So,
Okay. Yeah, that sounds
that's
good.
sort of the
So,
minimum.
you gotta have 4. Okay. Yeah, I will make sure to confirm promptly. This was the most like insane week I've ever had, where I was like going to work, working extra hours, coming home, trying to like get schoolwork done, and Beth was out of town, so then I was also just like constantly worrying about like my cat, and then now I'm gonna be flying out next week to. So yeah, just
Correct. Where are you
anyhow.
flying to?
Arizona, so Phoenix.
For work or?
Yeah, for work. There's a testing facility that we're using there. So I don't know why we had to go to Arizona, but we ended up using
Have a testing facility.
yeah. So anyhow, it's I'm gonna be out there and come back Friday. So it should be. I hope so. If things go well, it will be, and if it doesn't go well, it'll be terrifying. So
It's not a bad time to go to Arizona.
yeah, it's like 70s right now, and I picked a hotel with a pool. So I mean, the nice thing too is that it's like everything is basically gonna be on the company dime. So that's nice.
Yeah. That's cool.
Anyway, yeah, we'll look forward to next month.
That's okay.
All right, get it going.
It's 5. I think I'm gonna 5 minutes in. I think we cut off.
Okay.
You go ahead and play that next song.
Good morning, alright. What's up? Okay, Oakland energy. I'm trying to get turned in the AM. I love it. That's what's up. I appreciate the energy in the space. I also appreciate the energy in the virtual space online. Shout out to Ahan and Kim. What's poppin', girl? I see you in the chats. Welcome. I see some returning faces. I see some fresh faces, or just some eyes I haven't met yet, right off for wearing the masks. I appreciate it. Welcome. Just as a reminder, or maybe news, this is our life. We are a group of everyday individuals doing our best to live, love, fight, and follow what Jesus did and does. And I'm excited that we get to share in that space together. So as we get into this time of worship through song and prayer and conversation and listening, just another reminder of the invitation to come in as you are, to feel and respond as the Spirit guides and leads. I'm going to ask for very minimal participation today, but I'm going to ask for something. So if you feel it in your heart, in your body, and you're willing to rise as we start with song and prayer, that would be awesome. This first one's going to be a prayer that is reprised as a song, so feel free to sing along or respond how you feel. Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be
That's usually what I worry about. For this it works. You're right. Thank you.
Give us this day our daily bread. Forgive us our debts, as we forgive our debtors. Lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, the power, and the glory forever. Thine is the kingdom, power, and the glory forever. Thine is the kingdom, power, and the glory forever. Thine is the kingdom, power, and the glory forever. In your presence, I will dwell in the shelter of you, the Most High. In you I will in your presence I will sing. You are faithful, the God who covers me with love and mercy. Let's do that again. Let's sing in your presence. In your presence I will dwell in the shelter of you, the Most High. You are will abide. are faithful, the God who covers me with love and mercy. You are my refuge. You are my refuge. You are my fortress. I will trust you. I will trust you in times of trouble. Still, you are with me. I will trust you. I will trust you. In your presence. In your presence, I will dwell in the shelter of you, the Most High. In you I will dwell. In your presence, I will sing. You are faithful, the God who covers me with love and mercy. You are my refuge. You are my refuge. You are my fortress. I will trust you. I will trust you in times of trouble. Still, you are with me. And I will trust you. And I will trust you. You are my refuge. You are my fortress. And I will trust you. And I will trust you in times of trouble. Still, you are with me. I will trust you. I will trust you. You are my refuge. You are my fortress. And I will trust you. And I will trust you in times of trouble. Still, you are with me. And I will trust you. And I will trust you. And all God's people said, Amen. Feel free to be seated. Y'all sound nice too. Okay.
To those who have been excluded by Christians, to those who have gone to church their whole life, and to those who are exploring, welcome. We hope that Oak Life Church can be a home for you. If you have been rejected by the church as a person of color, as a woman, as an LGBT person, as a non-Christian, or for any other reason, we're sorry for the way you were treated. We believe that God loves you, and we would be honored by your presence. We'll tell you a little about ourselves, and we hope we can journey together. We hope to love people the way Jesus does. We don't want to judge. We want marginalized people to be welcome here, and we are still improving as an inclusive place. We long for peace and justice on earth. We build this through community service, generosity, and activism. We value community, and we value building supportive relationships with each other. We love creativity, and we love the way God speaks to us through art. We don't claim to know the truth fully, but we seek to follow Jesus, and we seek to grow together. If these are things you connect to, come visit us. We hope you will share with us who you are and help shape our community. With much love, Oak Life Church.
Just a reminder, please keep wearing your mask as we are still in COVID season. Thank you. And COVID flu season. Thank you. Kids and families are dismissed. And kids are going to have fun. Please go to the music. Coffee is back, so thank you, Becca, for doing coffee today. We have mugs, but feel free to bring your own mugs if you would like. And we just ask that we make sure we clean up after ourselves at the end of service, and you can wash your dishes in the future to get them back. Silent auction. So the silent auction is in the back to my right, and there's various things there, like homemade bread, tours, and other items. So please feel free to bid on the silent auction until December 1st, and it's to raise money for OSHA. And if you have questions, you can email Leslie, and Leslie will be back for you. Book discussion will be after church today, and it's all about love by books. So feel free to join us to read the book. If you have it, feel free to pick it up. Because I'm choosing anything I have it, I haven't got it yet. See the calendar forever. This coming Friday at the New Parkway at 6 o'clock. So yes, definitely get picked. I've been trying not to look on social media. Everyone's doing their contact. Operation Cranberry Sauce will be in front of the New Parkway. So Saturday the 19th from 9 to 11ish. New Parkway is really close if you haven't been, but for those that remember, it's really easy to have service. Brief group will be every fourth Sunday after service, and so the next one is November 27th. And you can keep in for man, and it's going to be here at one of the sidelines. Yeah. If you want to get connected, you can scan the QR code, or you could, we have a volunteer availability as well, if you want to find those two different okay. If you're able to support, we would, of course, if you want to donate to the church, you can go to the church website. If you are needing mental health resources or know about mental health resources, you can definitely connect with us as well on the church website. But for anything else, just email the leadership team. Community announcement, so 3 seconds.
Okay, great. Hey, good morning. So my name is Leslie, and I am the current acting board chair of Oak Life Church. That's like thank you. So that's being the church president. It is a volunteer job, and it is a nominated job. So I have a 3-year cycle, and then somebody else will take my place. So don't get too familiar with my face. At any rate, I want to talk a little bit about a couple of things. One is why we're doing this silent auction, okay? So, we have been a church for going on 9 years. 9, let's go. Okay, and in that time, we have been kind of like steady or slightly increased in our budget. One of the things that we decided we wanted to do was to offer benefits for our pastors. So, a part of that is that we're consistently offering them just a little bit, because we only have 2. It's really hard to go out into the marketplace to get medical, but we're giving them a little bit of a stipend towards buying medical or saving for their retirement, right? And that's because we're growing as a church, we're getting a little bit bigger, we're trying to make sure that it's sustainable for our pastors to be our pastors, right? Okay, so that means that we have a little bit of more cost increase. Why? We're doing a silent auction. We have a goal that was set by our finance group that we should raise $5,000 in this fiscal year. That's not saying we're going to raise $5,000 from this silent auction. These are just one of the things that we're doing this year. So in the silent auction, wonderful, amazing people from our community have donated awesome things, okay? And I try to create little samples of things too, like the crochet doll that Mitzi made for me for the Secret Santa, and I put that as an example. A moss ball that I bought from our woman-owned business that's also Greg's wife. And so there's a sample of that. We have a wine basket. We have experiences. If you wanted to go in on something together, there's a John Muir experience where you can have a guided tour by a historian and lunch and beer afterwards at a beer brewery. You know, all the things, okay? So please take a look at that table and help us to just keep a life alive. Okay. Second thing that's not about money, because that's really uncomfortable. Everybody take a deep breath. Me too, because I'm in a mask. Okay. The second thing is I run a hiking group. It's a first of the month hiking group, and we meet 9 a.m. every first Saturday. And I'm also grateful for our community because the Saturdays that I haven't been here, Mark have led, the growers have led. I'm just very, very grateful. So come join us in December, 9 a.m. first Saturday.
Thank you. Any other announcements for those here before we go to the folks online? What do you have?
Nothing online.
Nothing online?
No.
All right, thank you, everyone. We are now going to move towards chair conversation.
It's
All right.
church chat.
Chair chat, thank you. Sorry, I didn't like to forget it all. And so feel free to mingle with people you haven't talked to before, so we can continue to build this community. All right, thank you.
Thank you. Good job. Yeah. It's also, I was like going to do this. Oh, it's already as high as it goes. And I was scared about doing that. And then like something changing while they're talking. So
We're doing our best.
it is, yeah, it's unfortunate.
I think we have subtitles on. Sometimes YouTube will just automatically, and that'll help. You can read it. Maybe.
Yeah, that would be good. And that was Jessica who.
Yeah.
All good.
Also, during chair chats, feel free to check out the silent option. Did you get the wireless back? Okay.
Yeah.
That's when you run for the conversation part.
Cool. So many people here.
What's that?
It looks so nice.
Yeah, it's a full morning. I was talking to somebody who was a bouncer at a club, and they were saying there was no rhyme or reason why some Sundays or some nights, like it could be Tuesday night, for whatever reason it's packed, and then the night they expect it to be more full is empty. Like there's no rhyme or reason. So your dynamics are fascinating.
Yeah.
Okay, this is your 1 minute warning, 1 minute warning. All right, go ahead and start wrapping up the last comments, putting pins in the ideas, figuring out your lunch plans with your friends. Good morning, everyone online. Welcome to Vanessa, to Jessica, Charlotte, and everyone else who's joining online. Keep the conversation going. It's good to see you all and be connected. All right. Hey, good morning, everyone. Welcome. Special welcome to anybody who is new, or this is your first time with us, or first time in the space. A few of us. It's good to see so many beautiful humans this morning and be together. I will keep saying it for a while. There's a time when we couldn't do this, and this is special. Community is so special. A couple of things just to highlight. Art night was dope. Thank you, everyone who performed. It was really special. We had comedy, poetry, music, somebody playing djembe, a lot of visual art. Is really cool. What a cool community we have. And then just one more plug for book club. Afterwards, we'll probably be in that room up there if you want to do the book club with us. And the last one is Wakanda Forever. No spoilers before Friday. If you want to come with us, we're going to go back to the Parkway, but get your tickets quick. There's a 6 p.m. showing, and it'd be fun to get a crew to go watch it together right at the Parkway. Back to the Parkway? Because we used to meet there. So we're still friends, yeah. I think you were there for that, if I remember. Give it up for Greg, everybody. So there is a proper rhetorical device that is often implemented at the beginning of a public speech that is sometimes called introduction or hook or opener. And it's often a lighthearted way to engage people into the subject at hand. Today, that felt a little off, finding some sort of cutesy story, because the topic today we're going to be wrestling with is reconciling the God of love with suffering. It's one of those topics that came up actually in a lot of follow-up conversations with the series we've been on. The series we've been in is called The Radical Way, what it means to walk the path of love and see God as this expansive view of love. And it's been a really fun, engaging, thought-provoking, inspiring, encouraging set of conversations. And most of the people who weren't me speaking, those are the best ones. But today, the topic is, how do we reconcile God and love with suffering? We all know the pain of the world, so I don't need to bring the emotions of it up with things, shootings, war, unfair early death. We all know that that's part of our world. And so today, as best as we're able, we'll spend some time just holding this thought open. We call this discussion theodicy. Everyone say theodicy. It's translated to judging God or justifying God. I heard somebody say cross-examining God. Like, God, where were you? How were you? Where are you? What are you up to? And let me just say right off the bat that it's completely okay to ask these questions. This is where intimacy happens, when we open up the tough questions and wrestle. This is why the people of God, Jesus' culture, were called Israel. It means to wrestle with God. In our Western American context, we often avoid the tough conversations because of things like American exceptionalism, the need to produce constantly and keep going. So we avoid some of the shadow parts of life, some of the hard things, because it's not convenient and doesn't square with a lot of theology. But I think our faith tradition offers so much help, healing, encouragement, hope in this conversation, from the dark night of the soul to the Psalms to the actual experience of Christ. So my last little disclaimer is that this is a discussion that cannot be solved in a sermon. Anybody who says, here's the answer, it's probably not at least satisfying, but it may not be an answer. In the face of the most tragic circumstances, I don't think there's an answer that can make it all better or fix it. There's no pill or cliche or formula I could offer that solves this. If you're here last week, we read 1 Corinthians 13, the love chapter, and in a lot of the translations, it says that right now we see through a glass dimly. Right now, things are murky, so we try to love. We read the Indigenous translation last week, and they call Paul small man, which a lot of us found enjoyment on. And small man's language was, right now we're looking in a muddy puddle. It's a muddy puddle, so we don't see fully. And so we hold that tension. Is there an alarm going? Or phone? Something? Oh, good? Okay, cool. Just making sure. So right now we're going to hold the tension. We won't have the answers, but we're going to try to wrestle in love and together and try to see maybe where God is. So the question of where is God amidst the suffering? Why is suffering? Is a classic question. It's actually asked by the disciples. A similar question or an adjacent question in the Gospel of John. We're going to read this one together, and this will be kind of our text to wrestle with, to listen to in community. And so as we read this, if there's something speaking to you, or a word, or a phrase, or a question, and you want to share it with us, that would be awesome. I love the comments that are in the community. Often it's the most important stuff that happens when we gather together. And Greg will pass around a mic in a moment. So when we get there, raise your hand. Just some context for John 9. And by the way, if you want the sermon text, if it's a little too small up there, you can go to oaklandchurch.com/Sunday text, or take a screenshot of that, and it should take you to a page that has the passage and all the quotes for this morning too. I'll let that hang for a minute as I talk about the context. The context here in John 9 is that Jesus was teaching. He was in Jerusalem, and he basically said, I am God, in a different form. He said, I am Abraham. Before Abraham, I was. It was a very offensive moment, and those who were listening got upset and picked up rocks to stone him. And so he flees. And so it says along the way, so somewhere right after that moment is where this conversation happens. Imagine his disciples going with him and then kind of trying to figure out, well, what's this all about? So John 9, we're going to read 1 through, I think it's 11 or 12. The title of this passage is called Jesus Heals a Man Born Blind. As he walked along, he saw a man blind from birth. His disciples asked him, Rabbi, who sinned, this man or his parents, that he was born blind? Jesus answered, neither this man nor his parents sinned, but he was born blind so that God's works might be revealed in him. We must work the works of him who sent me while it is day. Night is coming when no one can work. As long as I am in the world, I am the light of the world. When he had said this, he spat on the ground and made mud with saliva and spread the mud on the man's eyes, saying to him, go wash in the pool of Siloam, which means sent. Then he went and washed and came back able to see. The neighbors and those who had seen him before as a beggar began to ask, is this not the man who used to sit and beg? Some were saying, it is he. Others were saying, no, but it is someone like him. He kept saying, I am the man. But they kept asking him, then how were your eyes opened? He answered, the man called Jesus made mud, spread it on my eyes, and said, go to Siloam and wash. Then I went and washed and received my sight. They said to him, where is he? He said, I don't know. John 9, 1 through 12. Take a moment to share a word or a phrase or anything that's feeling, question and point attention that might be speaking to you. And if you want to share something, we really invite you to do it. Greg will be passing on the last raise your hand. Any impressions from this passage? And online too, please share comments. Got one coming down in the front.
Can we go back to the previous one, or no, the one before? The one that really just struck me is the one line that God's work might be revealed in him, and it just makes it so beautiful that we're all born differently, and God's works are revealed through us all differently. And it's just thinking about the double shame sometimes that we have, that we don't have a certain future, that we're not born a certain way. Justice knows that God works through us in the way that we are born the way He designed us for us. For him to be revealed through us instead of having these features that we deem as desirable.
Thank you. Thank you some snaps for the comments.
I was going to say something, but I feel the exact opposite way. It bothers me so much to say this person has to suffer so that God can show the world that's not you. That feels so cruel, and I think it's a misunderstanding. I don't think that being born is a suffering probably was him because of the stigma and the harm that people did to folks who were different. But I feel like it's so often we talk about actual suffering today, saying it's a way to bring around God's plan, and that sounds good.
Thank you. Thanks for that. A few more comments. See you hand over there. Got some love for that comment online, too.
Let me just add to the book that was written. Just that my focus kind of went to the first question on who's that? Because, this is the Bible, and that this is the kind of thought that most Christians have in this society. It's like blaming the people who are suffering and will see suffering for their own suffering. And it just strikes things like how can this be in the Bible and you still don't even get past that surface? Both of you guys are beyond the surface level. And we just don't get there. It's just striking.
Thank you. Time for a couple more. If anybody wants to share. Yeah.
So I was going to share the fact that the Bible lets us know that all good and perfect gifts from God. And we know that our God is God of love. And we know what she said. That certain people's sufferings, even though we coordinates to be from God, to make you better, to make you good, they are not from God. We know God's love towards us, and we know His thoughts towards us. So there's a part of accepting faith, and there's a part of standing your ground and saying, I'm understanding faith, and subdue and pursue the truth. You call for my healing, you call for my victory, you call for the things that God promised in His Word. Right? There's a place to do that. And I was going to reference Hebrews 11. This speaks to certain people through faith subduing kingdoms, certain people through faith receiving your loved ones raised to them. Right? Certain other people through faith, right, were sawn in two, where we're crucified, we're by Him. So it's like there's a point to know. Should I just accept this, or should I stand on God's word, prophesy, stand in faith with other people about my healing, about my victory, about my joy, anything that affects you, as a person. And I think the final thing I was going to say was, the Bible speaks to the fact that in 1 Corinthians 15 speaking to the fact that if it's only in this world, we do have faith, we have all of these things. Granted, we see ourselves as people in this world that want to make it better, but everyone is still, what's the matter with this man in this life? Like 100 years. And that's why at some point we can empathize with people that probably were born disabled, and we're like, oh, this is sad. But thank God, if you believe in Christ Jesus, we know there's a world after this, and we know that all will be well in Christ Jesus.
Time for maybe one more.
Morning, everybody. Hi, I'm Eva. What really spoke to me in this passage was that this guy was just minding his own business, living his life, and Jesus passes by him and sees that faith is wrong, and then decides to heal him. And for me, I'm just like, God is so compassionate, and sometimes even when we aren't focused on God or calling out or crying out to God, He may just pass by us and make something happen just like that when we weren't even asking for it. And I just thought that was really cool.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you everyone for sharing. I said this last week, it's such a gift to be able to be in a space to hear people's perspectives as diverse and unique. And this, like, where else do you get to do this? So thank you everyone for sharing. So to yes and all that. Something speaking to you, or there's like a tension point, like pursue that. I love that we don't all have to agree, but we can still learn from one another with curiosity and humility. I think the world needs a lot more of those two things. But there's a lot to this passage. I was thinking about this in the context of last week when we talked about the translation of 1 Corinthians 12:31, saying, right now we see through, or first few verses of 13, right now we see through a muddy puddle. And then the metaphor of Jesus using mud and dirt to like allow somebody to heal from not being able to see, but to see clearly in Jesus, something kind of poetic there. But what I'm going to focus on is the word work, like what God is up to. Jesus' answer to the question, why did this thing happen? He connects it to something about God's activity, God's power, God's agency in the world, so that God's work might be revealed. I think we have a lot of misunderstandings of what God is up to and what God is like in the world. And it has to do with this question of love. So the word there in Greek is ergo. It means to work or accomplish, to exert power over something. It's kind of a catch-all phrase for activity. So God's activity. This bad thing is happening, and God's activity is somehow a part of it. What does it look like? Again, I think we have some off conceptions of what God is doing in our world and what God is like. Tozer says that what comes into our minds when we think about God is the most important thing about us. I mean, maybe you wouldn't say the most, but maybe you could say a most, an important thing about us. But how we visualize what life is all about at its highest level affects how we see ourselves and others. And so if we perceive a God, if those of us who are theists or believe in God or connect to that idea, if we perceive a God who is judging us a certain way, or holding our actions, or manipulating history for his good or their good, like that will affect how we create in the world. And so I think it's an always important question to hold open. How do we see God, and is it matched with love? If 1 John says that God is love. So here's a few different ways that I've noticed as a pastor, both in this context, myself and the world, of how people have had ideas about God that I don't think are fully complete. I wouldn't say these are wrong. They could be misused. And since it's a heavy topic, I'm trying to keep this part light at least. So some ways I've seen people misunderstand what God's work is, God's power, what God's doing in the world. First one is this picture, since we're doing a Marvel movie. Does anybody know who that is?
Bible man.
You didn't say it? Do you know Greg? You don't know. Oh, I stumped Greg. I just Googled most powerful Marvel character, and this is who came up. So this may not be true or not, but I blame Google and lack of bandwidth to research further. This is Beyonder. Beyonder, I'll describe this character with a simple thought. Beyonder can displace the entire planet, change the rules of physics, and even destroy the entire universe. That's why Beyonder has been presented in Marvel Comics as the most powerful being to ever exist, including brute force and absolute power. Absolute power to control and to dominate. Right? This character creates a sense of fear, and not fear of like, oh, I'm reverence, fear of like, I'm scared of you. You have a ton of power. And I think a lot of us have held a view of God that looks like that. God is up there with absolute power to be feared, has some sort of agenda, maybe not can be trusted, but I have to appease that God, because if not, they'll smite me, or they'll use their power to do something. And I think this discourse is prevalent in how a lot of people do theology. This is not what I see in Jesus. This is not the image of power or God's work I think we see in Christ. And ultimately leaves us with a sense
when the suffering question comes up, like, God, you could have done something, why didn't you? If you really love us, you're that powerful, that sucks, God. Where were you in this moment? And so it leaves you in this point of tension. Now, I do think God has power, but is that the primary view of how we see God? I don't think so. Another example, anybody know who this is? Machiavelli. Wow. We're more academic than we are Marvel. That's awesome. This is, good job. Machiavelli wrote the 16th century book, The Prince, and is often referenced as a way to describe how to control people and how to gain power, manipulative power, a house of cards power, a political power. Like, I think we've all just become so desensitized to the fact that politics are corrupt that the question of somebody's character often isn't even an issue. It's like, are they on my side or not? Yeah, they're going to be messed up. They have to control things and manipulate like puppet masters. I think some of us have viewed God this way, the Wizard of Oz behind the curtain, manipulating history, making some people blind, some people suffer, some people good, all for their own good. This model allows God to control, doesn't feel very personal, also has this idea of like, God's over there, and I don't want to mess with God. I think a lot of us accidentally carry that sense of God with us, even in a positive way. I think this is where superstition and religion can kind of blend. Or if I do this thing over here, that'll appease God there, and then I'll get this thing over there. And we pray in certain ways, and we act in certain ways, hoping to also be kind of puppet masters in our own reality, to control, to manipulate. And sadly, I see this interpersonally a lot. Like I have a friend who's like moved from here. Fair enough. I have a friend who moved from here to DC, and their first impression of DC, they were loosely connected to government. They were like, every party we go to, people size us up. Like, can I use you for my career? Like, oh, who do you do work for the Department of Defense, the White House? And they just felt that culture difference. Not that we're perfect here, we probably have our own hierarchical way of viewing each other, but we do that. We manipulate and leverage to get something good, and sometimes we see God that way. I don't know if that's completely correct. I think God does manipulate history, but in a certain way. So the next model, and these are just fun. These may not be the most accurate portrayals. They're just like placeholder images to get at a deeper idea. Anybody know who this woman is? I learned about her this week. You guess this, okay? This is Marilyn Vos Savant, maybe the smartest person alive today. With an IQ of 228, she's listed as the highest IQ individual in the world by Guinness World Records since 1990. She's a cognitive psychologist and writer who has authored several books on intelligence, including Superordinate Personality, A Theory of Genius and Superiority. She's brilliant, amazing, a different level genius, right? I don't know if you've met those people. It's like, you're just on a different level. We did art night last night. I played a song, and then other people came up. I'm like, you're just at a different level. And that's awesome for you. And sometimes when we get into the theological issues with God, we put God as this idea. God has all the answers up there, and we distance ourselves from the on-the-ground work. God is genius. I think God is massively intelligent, beyond our comprehension. But when there's a distance there, they're just over there, and I'm down here, I can't possibly understand. Sometimes that affects our view of God and what God is doing. God's doing something, I don't understand it. And we diffuse ourselves from being a part of that work. So there's a few models. So the last model, which I think is the 1-2% today, all these I think could be attributes of God, but aren't the primary attribute of the God we see in Jesus. One last image. This is a painting. It's called Black Christ, and it was painted by a South African. It was made illegal at the time of apartheid, and then smuggled to Europe, where it was exhibited in England. It shows Christ as a black man with the face of Nobel Prize winner Albert Lutuli, and those who are crucifying Jesus are the government leaders who were holding up apartheid at the time. Hendrik Verwoerd, John Vorster. They're the Roman soldiers. This painting not only challenges the apartheid system, but also the notion that Jesus was white, which is another view God we always have to correct. Jesus wasn't a white dude. What I love about these sorts of subversive images is it places the divine in a place of surrender, a place of sacrifice, out of love even for the enemy. This is a vastly different view of power and work and what God is up to in the world. So when we filter the question of why does bad stuff happen through the lens of, well, God's doing something, God's all powerful as a primary mechanism, we miss out on something deeper, which I think is intimacy and love and connection. And it doesn't always make sense, but I think the image we see of God portrayed in this tradition is a God who suffers alongside, who loves, whose primary filter, primary understanding to hold is love. And love allows for openness. And unfortunately, and I don't necessarily agree with this, I don't understand it fully, but for some reason, love allows for suffering. Love holds it and eventually transforms it. But this is part of love. I don't know if you've ever experienced it even on a small level. Like, sometimes love hurts. Jesus says this later on in John 15. This is my commandment, that you love one another as I have loved you. No greater love, no one has greater love than this, to lay down one's life for one's friends. The word here is agape, and it's been held as the highest form of love, in confluence with the other understandings of love, but it's self-sacrificing love, and it's a different form of power, of work, and of agency. God's primary objective in the world is not control, it's love. And love yields oneself to transform and to heal. Love gives up power and provides space for freedom because love isn't forced and it can't be manipulated. And it's not something you fear out of danger, but you love out of reverence and connection, personally present with you. In the midst of the brokenness, not separate from the brokenness. This is how God yields power. This is what God's work in the world is love. And with the faith trajectory, there's a hope that the suffering of the world is not the final word. That gives me comfort. Because if there wasn't some sort of hope that this brokenness can be transformed in the end, somehow, somewhere, some way, there's no other answer. It's just defeat. This is the brokenness of the world, and that's just what it is. This orientation doesn't give an answer for why suffering happens. So let me just say this. This is one of my 2 points. This is me personally speaking. Probably people who disagree with me, and you're welcome to. That's beautiful. I don't think the Jesus tradition offers an answer to the question of why is there suffering in the world. I think the answer is a million things, from human decision to God, maybe, at least somewhere behind the scenes or before everything, to natural disaster, to accident, to just the openness, the chaos of our world. And the answer is not that we should seek to find them and work through them. I don't think the primary claim of Jesus was to give us an answer to that question. Why? I think the primary question that Jesus responds to is a story of where. The Jesus story provides us a response to the question of where is God? If God is love, God's love is expressed in solidarity in our suffering, in an eventual transformation of that suffering towards love. This is the metaphor of the cross, the image of the reality of the cross. All of brokenness taken on the highest thing ever, God, and those things do not get the last word. They're transformed, forgiven, healed in love. And that's what we're people of resurrection. That's our hope. That's what we're moving towards. But this is not to be missed, that God is God who suffers alongside. Origen, the African theologian, says this: who among those who have read the Gospels does not know that Christ makes all human suffering his own? One Franciscan monk says it like this: it is precisely this point, at this point, that the suffering of God and the suffering soul can meet. It is at the point that human suffering makes spiritual sense, not to the rational mind, not to the logical mind, or even the just and fair mind, but to the logic of the soul, which I would state in this way. Suffering people can love and trust a suffering God. Only a suffering God can save suffering people. Those who have passed across this chasm can and will save one another. Any other God becomes a guilty bystander, one that we will not deeply trust, much less love. God's agenda in the world is love. Love enters into the brokenness, suffers alongside. May not give us all the answers we want or long for. I don't know why. I hate that. I want to know. But I can say with authenticity that I have experienced a God with me in my suffering. And I've seen others experience that as well, even through death. Instead of an answer, God says, here am I. It's going to be okay. As you can, trust me, I love you, my child. This is what Jesus offers. Not an answer to the why, but an answer to the where. Jesus offers us presence and hope, a love that bears all, suffers all, transforms all, heals all, eventually bringing new life to our destination from which we came, love, God's presence. The good news of the radical love of God is this. In the love of Christ, in this image, we have presence with us and hope beyond. I'll share one story I've shared before, but it's a story that came up over and over again. And it's of a story, we were in Myanmar, and we were hanging out with some church people. And after church, we have lunch, we have this meal with people, and we're sitting at a table, and there are little kids playing around. It's awesome. We're eating food, and there's little kids running around. And we were in a small room that had two doors. And so the kids were running in one door, running past us, running out the other. And then there's this game where the kids were like playing tag, basically, and chase in the loop. One of the kids realized, oh, I can shortcut this by climbing up this window in between and like getting through. Instead of having to go all the way around and go through this window, the kid climbed up the window, got up to the top, and then slipped and fell straight on their head onto a floor like this, a really hard floor. We all like gasped, like, what's going to happen? Immediately, the child's mother went and swooped the child up in her arms, speaking Burmese, giving this child tenderness and love and affection. And I don't understand everything she said, obviously, but I do at the same time, like in a soul level. In that moment, in the midst of that child's brokenness, there wasn't an answer. It didn't matter. There's pain, there's harm, there's something going on. This mom took that pain on herself and held this child. And it's been this haunting, beautiful picture of what God is like. Because I don't understand it, but I understand it. Like, this is what God is up to in our world. And it's in some ways beyond us, but we should try to understand it and be part of it and join in the work of entering into the broken world with love and solidarity. So 2 closing questions for us this morning. Where might God be near to you in your suffering? Part of the spiritual journey is noticing God already with us. Kind of seeing, noticing, being present to it. Where might God already be with you in your suffering? And then second, what suffering of the world might God be calling you to hold and love? Not offer a quick answer or solution, but presence, relationship, bearing witness to it, seeing that pain and suffering is sacred and holy because it's our pain too. We have to do that together. This is the good news of community, is that no one person can fix it all. And at times some of us have to engage and others have to rest. But together we can make a difference. And ultimately, we have to have some hope and faith that this is God's problem in the end. We'll do our part, but God, you're bigger than us. And we trust that you somehow love us in the midst of all this. Where might God be near to you in your suffering? And what suffering of the world might God be calling you to hold and love? Let's pray, and then we'll transition to communion. God, thank you for being with us, even though answers don't make sense often. As Scripture states, it's muddy, it's foggy, it's murky. We don't understand why and where. Would you teach us to walk the path of love even in the midst of the mess of the world. Help us to find you with us, inviting us towards the path of healing in our own brokenness, and also following you to where you are already with the world, in the midst of the world's brokenness. Pray for anyone in this space, online or with us in person, who has, myself included, held a view of God that isn't as loving as you really are. You've been taught something that's not who you are, or we made that the focus. I pray that more than anything, we would have in our souls a sense of your parental, maternal love holding us in the midst of whatever we're going to do. Whispering in our ears, singing songs over us. You are not distant from our brokenness, our pain. Thank you for that, God. Amen. This next space will take some time to sing and reflect. Please feel free to go to the back table. There's a question poster thing that says, "Where is love?" or "What is love?" Feel free to read people's responses that they've been sharing the last few weeks, or write down your own. There's also a community love bucket, a chance for you to put some cash in there for anybody in the room who might need lunch money or pay a bill. That's an open give and receive. It doesn't go to a pledge budget. It's just for the community. And then finally, communion. There's some communion cups back there. I think this is one of the most sacred things we get to do because it teaches us love intuitively, not logically. We taste love. We see it, we feel it, we smell it. On the night that Jesus was with his disciples before he was crucified, he took some bread and broke it, said, "This is my body, broken for you." This is what love looks like. Same way he took a cup, looking his friends in the eyes, saying, "This is my blood, shed as a sign of a new reality, a reality of love, a new covenant, a new hope. Every time you eat and drink of these, remember me. Remember this love that surpasses, that holds all, that overcomes all, that offers us ultimate hope in you." Feel free to receive communion if you want to remember communion. Let's reflect on this further. Thank you.
Oh God, you're near in the quiet. God, you're near in the shadow. Oh God, you're near, and my breaking. God, you're near. Oh God, you'll never leave my side. Oh God, stands firm through all my life. In my searching, oh God, you're near. In my wandering, God, you're near. When I feel alone, oh God, you're near. At my lowest, God, you're near. Oh God, you'll never leave my side. Your love stands firm through all my life. High nor depth nor are we are joined as one by blood. Hope will rise as we become more than conquerors through the one who loves. I don't care for anything else, but us apart we are joined as one by blood. Oh, we'll rise as we become more than conquerors through the one who loves the world. Oh, God, you'll never leave my side. Stand firm throughout my life. You'll never leave my side. Oh, you never leave, never leave. Stand firm throughout my life. Oh, yeah. You'll never leave my side. Your love stands firm throughout my life. For this next song, thank you. This song is kind of an ebb and flow. I just kind of want to pull on the thread that Chris established with this concept of love and suffering, and it's like one begets the other. The song will kind of go through that. Because sometimes, even though we can sing about God being there, we don't always feel like God is there. So just continue to do what you're doing and just flow through this song with me. You can sing, you can sit, you can stand, you can be silent. Whatever the Spirit leads, right? When I'm feeling low and my heart is weak, I know you have the strength. You will carry me when I'm broken down. I'm filled with grief. I know you're far beyond what my mind can see. When I'm feeling low and my heart is weak, I know you have the strength. You will carry me when I'm broken down and I'm filled with grief. I know you're far beyond what my mind can see. I know you're far beyond what my mind can see. As I look beyond can feel your heart through the pain and strife. As I look beyond the cares of life, I can feel your heart. Feel you are for life. As I look beyond the cares of life, I can feel your heart. Feel you are for life. Feel your heart. Feel you are for life. Lead me to the water of life when I am sinking. You lift me out of the night down to the water of life when I am sinking. You lift me out of the night. How can it be? Hallelujah. It's your part of life. Feel His love overtake me. How can it be? Hallelujah. Feel His love overtake me. How can it be? Hallelujah. Feel His love overtake me. Lead me to the water of life when I am sinking. You lift me up out of the night down to the water of life when I am sinking. You lift me up out of the night. How can it be? Hallelujah. Feel His love overtake me. How can it be? Hallelujah. Feel His love overtake me. As we look beyond the cares of life, we can feel your heart. Through the pain and strife, as we look beyond the cares of life, we can feel your heart. Feel you are for life. And all God's people say, amen. In the spirit of communion of one body, would you rise as we close with tradition of our benediction? God of love, may we be people who courageously walk the path of love, reflecting your heart to ourselves and others, as we seek glimmers of heaven here on earth. Give us eyes and ears to sense your presence everywhere, and hearts that break with what breaks yours. Be with us now as we go forth to love and serve the world in person or from a distance. Amen. Peace out of life online. Peace out of life in person. Love y'all.